What is up, guys? Delboy here. So Carl Frampton comprehensively outpoints Nonito Donaire to win the interim WBO featherweight title. Excellent performance from Carl Frampton, and that is the type of performance I've been waiting for quite some time. I actually picked Donaire to win this fight. I knew Donaire was past his best. I said that in my prediction video, but I wasn't sure where Carl Frampton's head was at. I was questioning how much he loved the sport and how much he really still wanted it. And I felt that even though Donaire was past his best, to me Donaire is still clearly invested in the sport. But no, Carl Frampton delivered. I felt he was outstanding. In the first round it was quite even. You could have gave it either way. I gave it to Donaire. He landed some good body shots. He landed some decent shots overall. But again, you could have gave it either way. Kind of a feeling out round. But after round one, Carl Frampton really started to get into his rhythm. He was in and out. He was using the jab very well. The jab was quick and accurate. Right hand behind the jab. Carl Frampton was keeping it on the outside and just consistently outboxing Nonito Donaire, countering with a right hand. He was making Donaire follow him around the ring, and Donaire was struggling to get punches off. Donaire fell into his sort of old habits of being left hook happy, looking for that one big shot, looking for the left hook or right hand, and Carl Frampton could see that a mile away. So the first 5 or 6 rounds, Frampton didn't really take many risks. When it was on the outside, Frampton was the boss, Although Frampton was shorter and had less reach, Frampton was the guy who was using his jab, who was moving, who was dictating range. In round 7, Carl Frampton actually gets involved with Nonito Donaire. He gets up close, and in round 7 Donaire lands some lovely uppercuts on the inside that rocks the head back of Carl Frampton, and it looked like it buzzed Carl Frampton. So in round 7 Donaire had some good success. You could have gave round 7 to Donaire maybe. So that was a bit of a warning sign for Carl Frampton. Round 7 showed Frampton that Donaire, although he was clearly losing the fight at this point, you can't switch off and you can't play into his game plan and leave yourself open. And when the fight was up close, Donaire did have some success. He had more success when Frampton was trading with him up close. Although Frampton was still getting the best of most of the exchanges, it gave Donaire a lot more of a chance, and Donaire was landing a lot more up close than he was on the outside. So round 7 was a decent round for Donaire, had some success, but basically round 8, 9, 10, Frampton kind of regains control, boxing on the outside, popping a jab, that right hand behind it, in and out. Frampton was just outboxing Nonito Donaire. And like I said earlier, Donaire fell into his old habits of just looking for that one shot, whether it be the left hook or the right hand. And the problem was, he wasn't even feinting. He wasn't even trying to draw Frampton's lead. He wasn't feinting with his legs. He wasn't feinting with his hands, with his head, with his upper body movement. He wasn't doing any of that. He was basically a stationary target, following Frampton around the ring, waiting for Frampton to overextend. Basically, he wasn't trying to set these openings up. He wasn't trying to lay any traps. It's basically a guy who looked well past his best, essentially. A guy who was over the hill. He wasn't doing what he was doing back in 2007 when he knocked out Vic Darchinyan. He wasn't setting those same traps. He wasn't using the jab. He wasn't using his skill set. He was just a rudimentary puncher in there. And there were flashes here and there of Donaire having success, mainly when it was up close, but Frampton was the boss. But rounds 11 and 12, to Donaire's credit, he did let his hands go. He did try to apply pressure. In round 11, he landed some big shots, a big left hook that really caught Frampton flush. He did well to take it. Round 11 was a bit of a dodgy round for Frampton, but he did most of the good work. Round 12 again, Donaire really lets his hands go, lands some good left hooks. These left hooks were flush, by the way, in rounds 11 and 12. And that was big shots, and Frampton done well to take them. So rounds 11 and 12, Donaire did actually let his hands go a little bit more, and he did try and force the issue. But it was just too late, and Frampton got to the end and won the decision. and rightly so. He clearly won this fight. To me, Donaire, he went in there with a wrong game plan. He tried to be the counter puncher, but like I said, he wasn't setting anything up. He wasn't trying to create openings. He wasn't trying to set traps by feinting. He wasn't doing any of that. He was just basically a guy following Frampton around the ring, looking for Frampton to make mistakes. So he should have been feinting, and he should have been trying to create those openings himself. And failing that, what he should have been doing from basically the mid-rounds onwards is applying pressure. Because when it was up close, Donaire was having a lot more success than when it was on the outside. So after round 6, 7, after round 7 basically, when Nonito had some success up close, that's when Donaire should have really went for broke and really tried to be the pressure fighter, try and work the body, try and get up close to Frampton and throw uppercuts on the inside. But that never happened. I think it was just the case of Nonito Donaire being shot, being well past his best. But I will give Carl Frampton credit because I picked the underdog, and he did box really well. Frampton's footwork was as good as I've ever seen it, to be quite honest. Good as I've seen it since the Martinez fight. Really good display of footwork, in and out, spinning Nonito Donaire, keeping him off balance. It was a really educated performance, and one of Carl Frampton's better performances in his career so far. As for both guys, where do they go from here? Well, Carl Frampton wants to fight at Windsor Park next. That's going to be a big fight, whoever that is. I would love to see Carl Frampton fight Oscar Valdez. I think that fight gels very well. I think that'll be a tremendous fight. Valdez is flawed. He's defensively vulnerable, but he's a bit of a puncher. He puts his hands together. He applies pressure. He's got high output. I think that fight, will be a tremendous matchup that could go either way. That's for the WBO featherweight title. Carl Frampton has the interim version. Failing that, Frampton versus the winner of Josh Warrington versus Lee Selby. I think Lee Selby is going to win that fight against Josh Warrington. So, Frampton versus Lee Selby is a great stylistic matchup. You've got the guy in Frampton who's the smaller man, but a puncher, a bit more dynamic. But you've got Selby who's long, who's awkward, who's ungainly. That's a really good fight. I mean, they're the fights I would like to see, either the Selby-Warrington winner or Oscar Valdez. I'm not really too bothered about the Leo Santa Cruz rematch. I actually felt Santa Cruz won both fights. I'm not really too keen to see that again, to be honest with you. If it happened, I won't be mad, but I would rather see Frampton fight the Warrington-Selby winner or Oscar Valdez in Windsor Park. I think it's more likely to be the Selby versus Warrington winner. I'm not sure Bob Arum would really want to risk letting Valdez go to Ireland to fight Frampton. I'm not sure he'd risk that. Maybe he'd take Frampton in America, but I just can't see him letting Valdez go to Ireland to fight Frampton. I'd love to see it happen. That's a fight I'd love to see, but I'm not too keen. I'm not too convinced it's going to happen, sorry. So yeah, Frampton's got options for his next fight. He's a big draw in that division, one of the biggest draws in that division, if not the biggest draw in that division. So he's going to get big fights regardless. In regards to Nonito Donaire, to me, the guy needs to retire. He needs to retire. He is significantly past his best now, and he cannot win any more world titles. He just can't. If he wants, maybe have a farewell fight in the Philippines against like a D-level guy who's going to stand there and get knocked out. Maybe that could happen just for a farewell fight. He deserves that. He's been a 4-weight world champion. He's fought the best, win or lose. He was once a pound-for-pound level fighter. That win over Vic Darchinyan back in 2007 was my favourite Donaire moment, and I don't think people realise how much of a big win that was. Vic Darchinyan back then was tearing through everybody, and Donaire knocked him out. Also, the knockout against Fernando Montiel, that's a great knockout. He's got some decent wins there, but yeah, recently he's not been the same fighter, so I feel he needs to call it a day. But credit to Carl Frampton, boxed extremely well. Interested to see his next fight. Peace.